over 55 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by the Georgia Farm Bureau in association with Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College.
Hey there, welcome. Ray DeLessio, Jennifer Parson with you for our first new show of 2025. Last week we dished out the best of YouTube 2024, but now we're moving on, bringing you a fresh outlook at a list of news stories, including some real gems.
That's right, and this, by the way, year number 59 for the show. So yeah, closing in on 6 decades of the Farm Monitor. As for today's show, coming up, struggling to stay in the black. Georgia farmers face a tough go of things in 2024, and the outlook for this year isn't much brighter. Damon Jones has tips to help producers navigate tight margins and plan ahead. Hurricane Helene left rural Georgia in shambles, but recovery efforts didn't just restore the power, they made it stronger. How innovations are lighting the way for farmers and rural communities.
And then later, fly with us to Washington, Georgia, a place where history meets craftsmanship, and see how one man's passion for blacksmithing is bringing a forgotten art form back to life. These stories and so much more right now on the Farm Monitor. With the ever-rising cost of production and historically low commodity prices, 2024 proved to be a challenging year for many producers here in Georgia. As for what they can expect to see in 2025, it's shaping up to be a bit of a mixed bag. Damon Jones has the story.
It's officially time to ring in the new year, and hopefully time to turn the page on a tumultuous 2024 for agriculture as well. With higher than expected production and lower than expected demand for some of Georgia's staple crops, a number of farmers here in the state struggled to stay out of the red.
Unfortunately, throughout the growing season, commodity prices kept going down and down and down. And so we kept hearing more about financial stress and concern about how are growers going to make it work this year in 2024, just because margins that were tight already, they were getting smaller to potentially negative.
However, those looking for a big bounce back in 2025 should temper their expectations, as signs are pointing to another depressed market for a number of row crops.
Really, the outlook for 2025 is for commodity prices to stay low again, unfortunately, for those that are growing the commodities. It's good news for those that are using commodities to feed, like the livestock industry and the poultry industry, because they're going to see low feed prices there. So good news on that side of the spectrum. But for those that are growing the commodities, the outlook is for continued low prices.
The news isn't all bad, as the cost of production appears to have stabilized after seeing a nearly 30% jump in the past 4 years.
On the input side of things, we're really not seeing too much change from 2024. Interest rates are going to be relatively the same, maybe down just a little bit from 2024. Fertilizer prices, the prices that we're looking at right now, they're really consistent to what we saw last year in 2024, and the same with fuels.
So with margins once again expected to be tight, producers are encouraged to set a budget and plan ahead.
You know, if they did the calculations last year, we're looking to see similar numbers as we saw for 2024 as far as cost of production. And just making sure that they're watching the markets, if they can do any risk management tools like forward pricing, some of what they plan to produce to help reduce price risk, especially if they can forward price above their cost of production.
There is also growing optimism for a new farm bill in 2025, which could help mitigate some of the financial issues agriculture currently faces.
In order for rural areas and farmers to survive, it's important to have government policies that support agriculture and provide a safety net so we can continue to see a sustainable ag industry.
Reporting from Tifton, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
It's been more than 3 months since Hurricane Helene made its way through southeast Georgia, causing destruction and devastation along the way. However, as our John Holcomb reports, some organizations and agencies like Georgia Power are turning the disaster into an opportunity to improve.
Hurricane Helene is a storm that certainly will not be forgotten, as it was a storm that caused more devastation than ever seen, as it ripped through the heart of rural Georgia, destroying anything and everything in its path, including critical infrastructure such as the power grid.
Hurricane Helene was the most devastating storm to hit Georgia Power ever. Many people remember the damage that was caused by Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Matthew. Hurricane Helene actually did much more damage than those three storms combined. Hurricane Matthew took down about 2,000 power poles. Hurricane Helene took down 12,000.
Though the destruction was no doubt overwhelming, Green says they immediately went to work restoring the more than 1 million customers without power, but says they didn't just work to restore the grid, they worked to restore it better than it was before.
In many cases in this storm, we weren't just restoring power, we were rebuilding the grid. The grid had been so terribly damaged that we actually had to start all over. And when you do that, you have the opportunity. In some cases, for example, instead of using a wooden pole, you might be able to use a concrete or a steel pole, so you have a more resilient system. We also have upgraded much of our equipment and are in the process of doing that across the state. It really does give us an opportunity to make improvements to our grid that we would normally have been planning to do anyway, and we'll just do it while we're out there restoring after the storm damage.
Though most will never notice the improvements on a day-to-day basis, the technology can have a big impact by increasing efficiency when nature strikes.
You see transformers everywhere. A lot of people know what a transformer is, but there's other devices like sectionalizers and reclosers and trip savers. Those type devices is what allows us to keep the power on in a more timely manner. Where as opposed to where you may have just a fuse blow and your power stays out until somebody can come fix it. A recloser and a trip saver device that's on these poles, these automatically restore power.
According to Barrett, these improvements and investments are essential for everyone, but especially those in rural parts of the state that tend to be at the edge of service areas.
What we do is we go around our areas, like I said, rural areas where in the past you just don't see equipment like that. Usually you see that in kind of your more populated areas. And we're trying to focus on our more rural areas, so those customers matter. They're just as important as everybody else. A lot of our farmers with their pivots and irrigation systems, they're at the end of these lines in these rural areas, and that's where we're trying to get a lot of the system implemented so we can have quicker restoration time and just provide them with a more reliable system.
Reporting in Waynesboro for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
After the break, in the heart of historic Washington, Georgia, the ancient craft of blacksmithing is alive and thriving. Join us as we step into a world where metal meets art and where every clang of the hammer echoes centuries of tradition.
Hi, my name's Lee Merriweather. I'm a sawyer. I actually started as a lawyer. In 2014, I cut my first log with a chainsaw mill and fell in love with turning fallen trees into stories. One of my favorite stories involves a gentleman who had to bring down this post oak, and he didn't want to bring it down because it had so many stories with his children around this tree growing up. Well, when it finally came time to take it down, instead of having it hauled off to the landfill, he brought it to me, we milled it up, kiln dried it, and now is being turned into tables so all his children can have it in their homes and tell stories to their children about this tree.
Right now, we want to take you on a journey back in time to an art form that dates back to 1500 BC. Meet Patrick Blunt, Georgia's only certified artist blacksmith who found his passion for blacksmithing on farms and in barns as a farrier. His journey led him to an extraordinary discovery, a building in Washington, Georgia with a rich history as a blacksmith shop. Now Patrick is not only creating stunning metalworks, but also sharing his craft with others through classes that have become a therapeutic escape for many. In the heart of historic Washington, Georgia, lies a treasure trove of history and art. One block off the square, the unmistakable sounds of pings and clangs beckon us into a massive brick building where the ancient craft of blacksmithing is alive and well.
For me, it's the fact that this is the hardest thing that I have ever wanted to take on. This is the hardest thing I've ever tried to do, moving that metal and making it beautiful and not just a stick from the steel yard. Something about that, being able to change that material into something that somebody's gonna be like, wow, that's gorgeous. And almost the permanence of that work. You know, blacksmiths were absolutely central in really everything that happened. I mean, they shoed all the horses and mules. They made all the equipment. They produced knives. They produced hardware for the barns and the houses. As more and more of those things became commercially available, you started to see blacksmiths become smaller and smaller.
Patrick's love affair with metal began here at Casey & Son Horseshoeing School in Lafayette. But the call of the forge was strong. His early days were a blend of necessity and creativity, laying the groundwork for his future as an artist blacksmith. In 2021, while searching for the perfect place to set up his shop, Patrick stumbled upon a diamond in the rough. This very building, once condemned and on the brink of collapse, was originally a blacksmith shop in 1892. But Patrick and his wife Lee saw beyond the decay, envisioning its revival.
We walked down Court Street and came around the corner and we saw this building, and I pointed at it and I said, that's it, that's our building. That's the one I want right there.
What was it, character?
God, man, I don't know. Something, the character of I don't know. I have no idea. It was so weird. When I saw it, I was like, something inside of me was like, I know that place. I need to be in there. And so I wanted some history on it. And lo and behold, when I talked to a local historian here in town named Mr. Skeet Willingham, he knows like everything about everything. He gave me some history on it, and this was a blacksmith shop from like the 1880s. And the brick building may not have existed in the 1880s, but this site was being developed at that time. So there had been a blacksmith shop here from like the 1880s up to like World War I. So we don't really know a year when they went out of business, but probably sometime in the 19-teens.
Patrick's passion for blacksmithing is infectious. His journey from farrier to artist blacksmith is a testament to the enduring allure of this ancient art. By sharing his knowledge, he not only keeps the tradition alive, but also provides a therapeutic outlet for many. He offers classes for beginners to intermediate blacksmiths, guiding them through projects like knives, bottle openers, and garden tools. Each piece crafted here tells a story, a testament to the techniques passed down through centuries.
We live in such a, digital world that few people actually ever make anything with their hands. And I feel like that is something that is so ingrained in the human part of just being a human, is to make something, to do something tangible, that so many people are trying to find just something to do, to make, So yeah, I get a lot of first timers that come in here start swinging a hammer, find out they love it, come back again, come back again, come back again. I get a ton of repeat students because they're like, you know, I can't set this up at my house in my garage. Obviously, my neighbors would kill me. But I can go down there and swing a hammer a couple of times, a month or whatever, you know.
From the sparks of the forge to the clang of hammer on anvil, Patrick Blunt is forging more than just metal. He's forging a legacy, igniting a passion for blacksmithing that Patrick hopes will burn bright for generations to come.
Beauty was such a part of our lives back, you know, in the 20s and 30s. Look at anything that was made back then. It was all made to be beautiful. People felt like, hey, if I'm taking the time to do it, I might as well do it to where it's something I'm gonna wanna look at for the rest of my life, right? You know, people don't do that anymore. And I'd love to see more people creating beauty and putting it in the world. It would just be awesome, you know? I would love it because maybe we could get people's minds off of just buying something offline and actually going to an artist, going to a crafter, going to a local person to get whatever they need made. And that's the way it used to be, and we need to get back to that. You know, we need to get back to hiring local people to do what we want to do and not just getting on Amazon and clicking a button.
The man is gifted, let me tell you. And if you'd like to see some of Patrick's products or inquire about one of his classes, you can do so at the web address there on the screen, greenhowmade.com. Up next, it's the race against water scarcity, the collaboration between UGA and other universities that's revolutionizing the turfgrass industry.
My name is Wally Yokoyama. I'm with the Western Regional Research Center in Albany, California. I work in a unit called Healthy Processed Foods. We realized that environmental problems due to agriculture were becoming more and more of an issue. And so we thought that looking at wine grape research would be a good mix of environmental research and health research. And so we started a new 5-year plan on looking at the health effects of wine grape products. I don't know the exact tonnage, but on a percentage basis, I think about 40% of the harvest is waste. It's a tremendous problem because you can only spread so much of it back onto the ground and feed so much of it to livestock. And so somehow or another, you've got to get rid of it. And so our idea was to eat it. It turns out that one of the effects of these bioactive compounds in wine grapes is to change the microbiome, the gut bacteria population in the gut. What we're hoping to accomplish in our research is to help the American population to try to prevent metabolic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver, high blood pressure, through these bioactive compounds that reduce the source of the problem, which is inflammation through the gut.
Finally this week, when it comes to fall and that not-so-friendly game between the hedges, yeah, UGA might get a little salty towards its fellow SEC schools, but this particular collaboration is actually a good thing.
We're in an interesting time where turf grass is being removed from landscapes because of using too much water.
With our growing populations and increasing drought periods, water is becoming more and more pressing issue for turf grass management.
At the same time, if we take turf grasses out of the landscape, one of the best known biofilters to man gets removed from the urban landscape.
Grass in the past, was thought of as, it's guzzling, it drinks so much water, but the reality is that's not true, and that these guys are creating grasses that are so much more drought tolerant.
Many of the standard cultivars that have become commoditized over the years are no longer performing under today's standards. So we had to make a choice. And the choice was we were going to go away with the dinosaurs, or we were going to improvise and go to some of these newer varieties that were so much more drastically different and new and improved from the cultivars we had been producing.
The Warm Season SCRI program is a collaborative project between several universities: Texas A&M University, Oklahoma State University, the University of Florida, University of Georgia, North Carolina State University, and the University of California, Riverside. This is a collaborative effort funded by the USDA Specialty Crops Research Initiative, or SCRI.
Those funds have been essential for allowing us to really dig in and do a lot of really good research aimed at improving warm season turfgrass genetics, mainly focused on drought and shade and salt tolerance of these grasses that we use on golf courses or in the urban landscape, athletic fields, and in parks. Then it allows us to have good grasses in the landscape which then filter pollutants.
The universities in the SCRI project have some of the brightest minds in the industry. The fact that they don't have to keep and hide their varieties almost like it's a competition thing, but they're all working together to develop just the best grasses, and they're sharing insights and they're doing test plots.
Without the collaborative effort from multiple universities, how will we best understand the limits and the limitations of a cultivar? You know, where are the lines that a particular cultivar grows best in? Where does it perform best in the types of soil?
How do they perform over time? How good are they at lifting as sod? How much water do they use or not use? What types of pests impact these things?
The SCRI research has been extremely impactful for all of our programs. It's allowed us to exchange experimental material of these different turfgrass species. We plant and evaluate them. After we establish them, we then turn the irrigation off and we evaluate them for a couple of years without any irrigation inputs, or at least minimal irrigation inputs, and the focus is to develop these grasses that use less water, use water more efficiently, and are more drought resistant. The impacts are actually quite tremendous because we're developing new cultivars that are more drought resistant. This project and the collaborating institutions have released 9 improved turf grasses into the industry.
2 new grasses that have been released by the University of Florida that are a direct result of this collaborative research effort: Citra Blue St. Augustine and Citra Zoe zoysia grass.
Tahoma 31 Bermuda grass from Oklahoma State, Tiff Tuff Bermuda grass from the University of Georgia, Hamstar St. Augustine grass and Cobalt St. Augustine grass from Texas A&M.
There's Lobo and Sola. They're both Lobo zoysia grass, Sola St. Augustine from North Carolina State.
And Brazos zoysia grass from the University of Florida. All these new cultivars on the market provide new options for growers, new options for end users.
This research initiative is a great thing to get behind and support. I'm really excited about everybody who's involved on it, because they're pretty much the top in the nations getting together that are ultimately the best minds make the best choice at the end of the day.
We're in the early stages of adoption of some of these new grasses, but I think some of these are really game changers. We know that they use significantly less water. We know that they use less nutrients. We know that they have fewer pest problems. And so the true measure of that will come in time as these grasses are put out into the urban landscape and on golf courses and athletic fields across the southeast United States.
Before we send you on your way, a friendly reminder that for all the latest ag news regarding food, recipes, and what's happening on Georgia farms, be sure you check out all of our social media platforms, including farm-monitor.com.
For everyone here at the show, I'm Ray DeLessio saying take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time right here on the Farm Monitor. Have a great week, everybody.